Good evening to both of you gentlemen, and thanks very much for your time. Now, we still don't know, Ibrahim Fakir, what exactly are the reasons why Didi Mabuza has withdrawn or postponed, as the language goes, his swearing in. But in a likely scenario where Didi Mabuza may not take up his position in government and ends up at the party's headquarters in Luthuli House. We remember very well what happened when Jacob Zuma was in that situation. What do you think could be the implications?
Well, they're quite serious in the sense that President Ramaphosa will have to keep watching his back, particularly if there's a rearguard action that emerges from people who appear to have lost out in this bruising battle post-Nasrec. So there's all of that to factor in. That's one. But on the flip side, it could be positive because it allows President Ramaphosa to do two things. A, it seems to suggest that he might be able to appoint a deputy from amongst women, if he so chooses, or anyone else. And what that would allow him to do in the next ANC conference, elective conference, that is, to break this tradition, because, you know, you will hear some nonsense from some ANC members about the sudden tradition, which, you know, I don't know in 25 years how you build a durable tradition, and then, you know, automatically the deputy must ascend to the presidency. Now, of course, he remains the deputy in the party. They're always never sure about whether it's the deputy in the state or it's the deputy in the party that must ascend to the position of presidency. Ostensibly, it would mean the deputy in the party, so he still remain in the running. But of course, it allows him to break that tradition. If I were in the ANC, I would want to break that tradition, but I would also want to break the tradition which says that automatically there must be a recall of the president of the republic if he is not elected at the next conference, and leave that interim period for a caretaker. That ostensibly also some people say is a tradition. Where that comes from, I don't know.
But Lukwana Mnguni, I mean, however noble, you know, the reasons may be for whoever is in charge, who we have to assume has to be Cyril Ramaphosa, of the cleaning up, if indeed this is the beginning of it. Those who will not be part of Cyril Ramaphosa's cabinet when he announces it on Sunday won't take, I mean, at least some of them, won't take this lying low.
Vuyo, I think we must tread carefully not to jump the gun a bit. And that is because if we are talking about Didi Mabuza absenting himself from Parliament today, we do not know whether the President will, when he announces his cabinet, announce a Deputy President, or he will choose to leave that seat vacant until such time that the Integrity Commission and David Mabuza are done. I find this a very interesting case because finally, the true powers of the Integrity Commission are going to be tested by the second in command in the party. For some time, I've been skeptical of the Integrity Commission as a public relations management body of the ANC that discourages people not to be public representatives of the ANC but does nothing about them being leaders in the ANC per se. You saw it with the Limpopo people, the deputy chairperson and the treasurer who wrote to the secretary saying, oh, we want to go back to our seats and as leaders of the province because we don't know what this Integrity Commission process is going to take, because it's not a disciplinary process for you. So I think for that instance, I'm happy. And also, Mabuza is going to force the Integrity Commission to actually showcase to society and to the ANC how it tests people's evidence that they put before it, particularly because with David Mabuza, you don't have his name particularly prominent in the State Capture Commission or with a case before a court of law, unlike other people. So his is going to be a very interesting one, and he might be feeling that it might be easier to maneuver. What Mabuza has figured out is that it's important to secure your political base before you get comfortable in government. And I think that's what he's trying to do. If he secures the green light from the Integrity Commission, it will be very difficult to deal with him and put any other obstacle in his rise to power going forward. And I think this is what, for me, is at play here. Lastly, if you're talking about a cleanup,
before you get there, before you get to your second point, Lukhona, but I mean, if the ANC says that no one is guaranteed a position, why should there be a set aside for DD Mabuza? If by the time the president has to appoint his cabinet, the matter remains unresolved?
Remember, Vuyo, Cyril Ramaphosa partly knows that his rise to power also hung on the balance and on the basis of Didi's machinations in the Nasdaq conference. He's quite alive to the political processes that led to his election. Didi Mabuza has not said, I am not available. He has said, I need to clear my name and engage the Integrity Commission. So by that, he probably is saying, park the bus. So ideally, I don't want to speculate. It's become very difficult to do any speculation with the ANC because there's no sense of order anymore in how the ANC functions. So I can't say Sunday definitely a different deputy president will be chosen by the president. What is clear, Vuyo, if you are going to talk about a cleanup that is led by the ANC and listen to the ANC's own rhetoric, what for me is clear, on Monday there was a special NEC meeting of the ANC. If the ANC was serious about cleaning up, these pronouncements of people who are not going to take up their seats would have been done in that particular meeting. It's quite clear that the ANC continues to produce imperfect outcomes that are then managed somewhere outside the structures of the organization. And therein lies the first threat to the power of Cyril Ramaphosa, because if he can't secure his political base in the NEC and relies on solving things by appealing to people, having go-between meetings among those he thinks should not make it into his cabinet and so on, eventually those people will retreat to the political base and try and reconsolidate against his leadership.
Now, Ibrahim Fakir, I mean, what are the chances then of those who, yes, whose names may have come up at the State Capture or Commission, but of saying, but why should I be subjected to a different process? Notwithstanding what was said about me at the State Capture Commission, why isn't the same process followed, the same process that is now being followed by the ANC with respect to Didi Mabuza?
Well, those people's claim would rest on the fact that they would first then need to go to the Integrity Commission of the ANC, quite apart from what the Zondo Commission says. And until and unless there are actual prosecutions that happen out of matters arising from the Zondo Commission, those people would actually have a leg to stand on, because there's no process which now should bar them. There's no finding which bars them from holding office. There's just one gap in, so everything Lukhona is saying is fairly accurate. But remember, the Integrity Commission, as he rightly says, is not a disciplinary body. It is also not a decision-making body. So every recommendation they make will have to be finalized and advised or taken action by the NEC of the ANC. So that's still one more loop that has to be gone through. And Ramaphosa will be process-bound, not just by regulations in the state, but also by processes in the party and in the alliance broadly. So those MPs who you say, well, you know, if their names come up in the Zondo Commission or elsewhere, and they suddenly say, well, why should we now have to take the rap? If others
but if as Lukhona points out, the ANC continues, you know, to churn out these imperfect scenarios and solutions.
But that's been clear for a while. People in the ANC now speak from both sides of their mouth. I mean, Didi Mabuza, it's 5 minutes, literally. He had an attack of conscience 5 minutes before he was meant to be sworn in. I mean, literally. You know, we're not even making an exaggeration here. It was a matter of hours before he's meant to be sworn in, where he suddenly says he's not available. Why couldn't he say so last week? The Integrity Commission, which identified a set of people who they thought were questionable, that report happened before the election. Why did those people allow their names to be put on the list if they had this attack of conscience?
Lukhona Mnguni, what options does a Cyril have given what he needs to do, because he's been saying it all along. He wants the cleanup to happen. But on the other hand, he is obviously being held to ransom by party political processes, which you say he too owes his rise to that imperfect system. So he can't really, chuck it out completely, because it's what roots you.
I think what Ramaphosa needs to do is not simple but quite straightforward. He needs to weigh his options and check whether or not it is possible for him to secure his political base. And that is for him to pull the National Executive Committee of the ANC to this common vision that he is trying to propose, that the ANC must uphold the highest of integrity and ethical conduct in how it presents itself, not only just how its representatives perform in the state, but how the ANC itself organizes as a political party, because the tensions and the squabbles within the ANC always have a way of playing themselves out in the state, and in the state across all three spheres of government. And that's the first thing that he needs to check. If he then, in his analysis, says, there is no way that I'm going to consolidate my political base, which is the NEC, at least at this moment, and the structures of the ANC, then he must go on to government, govern the way that he wants and thinks we should be governed as South Africa, make the necessary appointments and disappointments among those who are senior leaders he believes are not fit for purpose, and then let it be to the ANC to judge him whether it will then churn him out as a problem because he tried to bring out this integrity and ethical conduct up even on the appointments he makes, and history will be the one that will have to judge him fairly as having tried but faced all odds against the ANC. What I think the public is going to be very skeptical about is seeing Ramaphosa succumbing to the dictates of an ANC that has, in terms of what one French sociologist once called moral deregulation, an organization that has faced moral deregulation cannot dictate to a person who's trying to uphold ethics in public office. And Ramaphosa has to create that distinction and decides whether he takes the political suicide of, in actual fact, saying, I am going to do the right thing, and if that right thing costs me my political career, so be it, I'll walk away quite intact.
And Ibrahim Fakir, while Cyril Ramaphosa takes the suicide, those, of course, who will be aggrieved at the fact that they are not, they don't have these positions of responsibility, they have not been given the opportunities to be the things. Truth be told, they can never be out there if they are not within the ANC. They are not going to stop making sure that it may not have happened this time, but it's going to happen certainly tomorrow.
Yes, so because you've called it but misnamed it. You call it positions of responsibility. They're actually positions of patronage. So far be it from in their minds that we serve where the movement tells us to serve. Suddenly,
we all know that's lip service.
Yeah, we all know that. We all know that's lip service. But here's the thing about the integrity of these individuals or their fealty to their own political organization. You say you're bound by this diktat, yet all of your behavior is nowhere approximating anywhere close to it. So, of course, there'll be a rearguard action. But whether that rearguard action can now be organized outside of what the patronage network allows them to do is a different question. But I slightly disagree with Lukona in the sense that I think Ramaphosa is now keenly aware that for the election he had to build a base outside of the ANC in society generally. So all of the outreach, the job summit, the investment summit, all of the other summits that he's held, he now has to build, and this is where we agree, build the base inside the ANC. And that's why I think he will go. In fact, I think what these members have done is done him a favor in the sense that he can now proceed to appoint on the basis of his own cognizance, rather than take into account what the different factions might want to want. He'll still have to balance the factions, but at least he's got a greater latitude to move. Whether that's political suicide or not will remain to be seen. But, we are speculating here in the dark because we don't know what's in the minds of these people. What really bothers me, it's the final point I want to make, is that many of these guys are always available to say something and they're always there to hold forth and hold court. But when you want them to explain why they made a certain decision, they're nowhere to be found.
But that shouldn't surprise you. But that's where we're going to leave it. Ibrahim Fakir, Lukwana Mnguni, thanks to both of you for coming through this evening and help us make sense of the drama that we saw today. ANC Deputy President David Mabuza requesting a postponement of his swearing in as an MP. Then Nomvula Mokonyane also withdrawing her availability for Parliament a day after it was announced that she would be the chair of chairs.